Hi, I'm Lachlan, a uni student who moved down to Melbourne from Brisbane in July to study in person on campus for the very first time in my degree. It was all going to be very exciting, and then it all fell apart very quickly thanks to those 2 COVID lockdowns we've had. Now I've been living alone for 2 months, don't know a single person in the entire state, and I work from home too, so this is the closest I've gotten to being outside in quite a while. My question is to Dr. Rhodes, because you've written about the subject and I'm very morbidly curious. What impact do you think this isolation is having on my mental state and that of all of the other young people who might be in the same boat as me right now?
I feel everyone in Melbourne and Victoria has to apologise to Lachlan this evening for it. But Anthea, tell us about the research you've done.
Look, Lachlan, thanks for your question. And absolutely, we've looked through the National Child Health Poll at how experiences of the pandemic generally, and we have to understand that it's not just lockdown, but also lockdown and for school kids, remote learning, have impacted on their mental health and well-being. And you are not alone at feeling a bit despondent and like it might be affecting your mood and your energy. So over a third of Australian kids have had a negative impact on their mental health as a result of the pandemic. And that's been more notable in areas where there's been longer lockdowns. So Victoria at the front there, and closely behind now, New South Wales. So I think there's a lot of evidence to tell us that these experiences do affect the mental health of young people, and that's another reason why we can't be really reductive when we think about how we're minimising harms when it comes to COVID. It's not just about the virus and the virus numbers. They are incredibly important, but there are other harms happening too. So not being able to go out into the community is not a neutral experience. It's an experience that comes with its own trade-offs, and they have to be considered in the equation continually as we go forward making policy decisions about how we best manage this.
Arth, did you want to jump in there?
I think what's really important to remember as well, and I go back to this point again, is it's really challenging, especially in Victoria. They're called short snap lockdowns, the Premier calls them.
But they rarely are.
They rarely, I mean, we're looking at 6 weeks on this one, Virginia, at the minimum. And, you know, to go in and out every time is incredibly challenging. The effects, and Petria, you know, the 2-month-long one especially, it's so disheartening. And when you have family members overseas, I haven't seen my family in India since 2016. I've lost multiple family members in the process. And it's so, and then you're taking the burden sometimes of your parents as well, because you're with them, you're not escaping that. So you've got all this stress on your head, and it feels sometimes as if, you know, the government doesn't recognise that, particularly in terms of our education. I mean, there has been no comment so far from the Victorian Curriculum Authority as to, you know, should there not be an extension of when we have to sit our exams? How on earth can they expect us to be prepared to start in October? And I'm, you know, Fiona, you've got a son in year 11. I'm sure he has the same concerns about the 3-4 subject he's doing this year.
We'll hear from Fiona in a second. I want to hear from Petria now. Petria, go ahead.
Well, I guess that's very, very accurate. I thought for the Year 12 students in Victoria at the moment, they've had over 200 days. I can't even imagine that. I've had over 2 months, and the general consensus from what I'm hearing from Year 12 students, from Year 11 students, is the lack of motivation and how they don't know how they'll be able to sit an exam in a couple months' time and do their best, which is a really challenging aspect because, yes, we can all sit our HSC or our VCE, but will that be a true reflection of our intelligence, of our hard work that we put in over the past 2 years? Because our demeanour has shifted. Our work ethic has shifted. We are, you know, we don't know what's going to happen. So there hasn't been this, you know, this grind to go and keep working and, you know, push forward. And instead we're left with, you know, what will happen is the HSC already has inequity in many ways, but COVID and lockdowns have impacted different socioeconomic groups dramatically. Some people, you know, kids, teenagers don't even have access to Wi-Fi, to a laptop. How are we going to go and sit an exam when there's disparity between all areas of Sydney, between all areas of Melbourne, and then, you know, expect that everything's normal? Because the fact is the situation isn't normal. It's very, very hard for young people, and we don't know what's going to happen and how inequity is going to be dealt with, and so that everyone gets a fair outcome.
I want to go to you, Fiona, because the question needs to be asked at some point, and there are those who are part of the so-called shadow pandemic movement who are talking about the shadow pandemic of mental health that's associated this, wondering whether the right call was made to put a higher priority on older people and protect them over at the expense of younger people. It's dreadful that it's even considered a binary, and I reject that whole idea that it's a binary choice between the two anyway, but that sort of seems to be, to those who are trying to support the rights of children and what children have lost out of the pandemic, the way that they're seeing it. Do you want to reflect on that for a moment?
Look, there is absolutely no doubt, Virginia, that the rights of children have been pushed aside for adults. I mean, there's absolutely no doubt about that. Children have not had voice. Children have not even been, considered, as we've heard tonight. It's only really in the last 2 weeks, I would say, where children have been visible, by and large, in this pandemic. And it's absolutely well overdue that children are put central, as we've heard, because this is, as in climate change, I mean, children are our future. We know that education is more than just going and sitting tests. It's more about social development. It's more about children to learn and grow, and teenagers need other children. Little kids need to learn how to share, they need to learn those social skills, and they learn that by interacting. And then for teenagers, it's learning about your identity, it's the peer support, it's all on who you are, and it's interacting. So there is no doubt children's rights have been pushed aside.
Anthea?
It does feel like, when we reflect and recognising that it's all easy in hindsight, and this has moved very quickly, and a lot of decisions have had to be made, as we keep moving and the game changes. But that said, it feels like at the beginning there was a lot of relief that children didn't get sick. We were worried about our kids, and we all exhaled and went, oh, thank goodness, kids don't get sick. And it was a bit like that was the end. Oh, thank goodness, kids don't get sick, the end. And the role the kids had then, and many of the sacrifices that, our young people are telling us about today, were made to protect older people. And now we're changing our story because we see that kids might be getting sick. Fortunately, they still don't seem to be getting very sick very often from COVID, even with Delta.
But the mental health cost has been high.
Correct, but we're seeing other ways that they've been impacted, and it's incredibly important that we don't continue with that. We're at a point now where we could look and say, what do our children need? What will this look like if we put them at the centre? For starters, we would be vaccinating everyone around children as a priority. Healthcare workers, yes, incredibly important. I'm one myself. But what about the teachers? What about the childcare workers? These people surround our children. They would be Category 1B if we put the children first.
We have a final question coming for you, but I just want to mention that if this discussion has raised any issues for you or anyone you know and care for, remember you can get help from Lifeline or from the Kids Helpline, and the numbers are on your screen now.